everybody, Bill with American Liberty Fighters here. Okay, so I've been doing videos on the Constitution here the last few weeks. So I believe we've gotten to Article 4, the states. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that today. And let me just preface this with I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I didn't go to school for, I haven't studied the Constitution in a school or anything like that. I just feel it's important as Americans that we understand our documents, what our founders really were putting out there, what they really meant by what they were trying to do. I feel it's our duty to understand and to know what our Constitution actually says. And like I've said before, you can get a pocket-sized Constitution. You can get a PDF file of Constitution. The Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers, those are real good to read. If you haven't read the Articles of Confederation, you should get that. That's also in PDF form. You can download all these from the internet. That's one of the beauties of technology today. That when I was growing up, and probably when people that are listening to this, when y'all were growing up, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have that capability. We had to have it in paper form. Yes, I like to have things more in paper form. I guess I'm old-fashioned in that way, but whatever. So, like I said, I've not studied. I'm not a professor. I'm not a. I guess as John from J-Null Zero channel, as he would say, I'm just a regular dude that thinks this is important for us to know. I think that to be a U.S. citizen, we need to know what we're actually defending. We need to know what our founding documents are and what our founding fathers, what our forefathers were fighting for and what they actually were trying to put in place. And I don't think a lot of people know that these days. I guess with that being said, as well as I believe it's called an endemic mind. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have a photographic memory. I'm reading from the documentation. I'm reading specifically from it so that nothing's misconstrued. I don't miss a word. I've actually looked up a lot of stuff, and so here we go. Article 4, the states. Section 1. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state, and the Congress may, by general laws, prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof. Now, if you go and look, Section 1 of the States Clause is it's covered in Federalist number 42. It just basically comes up with the power. This is part of it that I think it actually comes. You should read it yourself. The Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, they're all kind of a real long read, but they're worth it to get a better understanding. But Federalist 42, within Federalist 42, it says the power of establishing uniform laws of bankruptcy is so intimately connected with the regulation of commerce and will prevent so many frauds where the parties or their property may lie or be removed into different states that the expediency of it seems not likely to be drawn into question. So basically it's saying that I would think, we have full faith and credit in all states, that basically each state's got the same credit. Section 2, state citizens extradition. It has the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime, who shall flee from justice and be found in another state, shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime. This clause that I'm getting ready to read was superseded by the 13th Amendment. No person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. And of course, we're talking about slavery. The 13th Amendment supersedes this clause, and pretty much it's no longer something that you would have there. So Section 2.1 is covered in Federalist 42. The dissimilarities in the rules of naturalization has long been remarked as a fault in our system and as laying a foundation for intricate and delicate questions. In the 4th Article of the Confederation, it is declared that the free inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice excepted, shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states, and the people of each state shall in every other enjoy all the privileges of trade and commerce, etc. So again, I'll go back. If you haven't read the Articles of Confederation, it's important that you get that and read it. The Articles of Confederation came before the Constitution. So Section 2, Part 2, is covered under the Federalist number 80. That reads, it may be esteemed the basis of the Union that the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states. In other words, if you have the privilege in one state, you're going to have the privilege in any other state. It shouldn't be different. I don't know, maybe you can come up with some privileges that you have in one state that you don't have in another. And at that point, or immunities these days that you don't have. So going further, Section 3 covers new states in the Constitution. It says new states may be admitted by the Congress into this Union, but no new states shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states, or parts of states, without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned as well as of the Congress. The Congress shall have power to dispose of any make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, and nothing in this Constitution shall be construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state. Again, I don't know, maybe somebody can tell me, for me, they've prejudiced some things in the states. They've kind of taken from us. So, Section 3, 1 and 2 is covered in Federalist 42, which I have here, Federalist 42, number 4. To admit new states into the Union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states, or parts of states, without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned, as well as of the Congress. In the Articles of Confederation, no provision is found on this important subject. Canada was to be admitted of right on her joining in the measures of the United States and the other colonies, by which were evidently meant the other British colonies at the discretion of 9 states. The eventual establishment of new states seems to have been overlooked by the compilers of that instrument. So we had kind of, I guess, included Canada. We wanted Canada to come along at one point. So, and if I'm not mistaken, the state of Texas still has the right, after it joined the Union, it still has the right to split into 4 different states if it so chooses at some time. I could be wrong, but I think that's in the Constitution of the state constitution for Texas. So I'll have to look that up, and if anybody else knows that I'm wrong, feel free to tell me that I am wrong. Section 4, Republican Government. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. That doesn't mean that it's the Republican Party. It means it's a Republican form, a republic, with a constitution. So let's not get confused here. And shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but here lately, I would consider illegal immigration at the levels that it's happening today, at the level that the executive is failing to uphold the laws in the Constitution and is failing to have the Congress actually apply the law and follow the law. I would say we're under an invasion by illegal immigration. I don't know, maybe you agree, maybe you don't. I don't know. And this was covered in Federalist 39 as well as Federalist 85, which was Hamilton's conclusions to the Federalist Papers. And this part was also under Federalist 45. Now, if you don't know what happened, the Lee Resolution actually defined all the states as sovereign before becoming a state in the United States. Basically, the United States were sovereign. They were colonies, and the Lee Resolution said that we were no longer going to be colonies. We were going to, at that point, we were stating that we were sovereign states, that we were free and sovereign states from British rule. So our Constitution, it's a compact. As the sovereign states have joined together in a union, and the states actually made the federal government. So the states have sovereignty over the federal government, or at least that's how it's supposed to be, as the states delegated certain powers to the government to act on behalf of the states in foreign matters, not in whether you feel you're a boy or a girl for some sort of transgender thing, not if you feel that your homosexual rights have been infringed upon, and that you need to have the same rights to be married and have whatever, not because of you think that the police are brutalizing you because of your race or gender or whatever the case may be. Those are state regulated. The states are supposed to be in charge of those powers, and the federal government has stepped in and usurped what the state should have. And the states have failed to tell the federal government no, which the states should be telling the federal government to back off, basically. If you want to know more, James Madison also wrote what he felt the Constitution was in what's called the Report on the Virginia Resolutions. I'll put a link to that as well as a link to the Lee Resolution in the comments section. Basically, Madison was saying that in the report on the Virginia resolutions, he was saying the Constitution is a compact, and that the states were sovereign before the government was formed. The states formed the government, and therefore the states had sovereignty. The government couldn't take sovereignty from the states, and that kind of, I mean, I guess you could say that today we don't really fall upon that. We don't fall into that. We actually have a federal government who is running rampant over our privileges and rights and everything, and we don't really have a lot of rights and freedoms that the federal government doesn't say they have to approve now. I mean, we're getting into a point where it's, do we really have free speech? I mean, when you can start telling people that they can't say certain things at a federal level instead of a state level, where the state can say, well, we can't really say that, then you don't have free speech. You don't have freedom of the press. You now have a privilege. You're privileged if you're allowed to say something, and you're reprimanded when they don't like what you say. I mean, freedom of speech is freedom of speech. You say what you want, you speak how you want to speak, and you take the consequence of said speech. That's how I live my life. I take the consequence of whatever I say, and as long as I have the freedom to say it, so be it. And I don't know about anybody else, but I think that's the way it should be. I've said it before. I mean, we see a lot of the rights that are in the Constitution that are no longer valid rights. I mean, we have the freedom to do certain things, but we don't really. States have taken our freedoms, and the federal government has taken our freedoms. They're infringing upon our freedoms all the time. Case in point is the Second Amendment, which we'll be getting to later on in this series. So, again, like I said, I'm not a professor. I'm not a teacher. I'm reading what I feel is important. I'm putting the Constitution out there for those who don't have the Constitution in any form, and for those who don't like to read, you can. I mean, I really think that no matter what, me reading the Constitution, me reading the Federalist Papers, or the Anti-Federalist Papers, or the Lee Resolution, or Articles of Confederation, or anything else, any other documents, whatever I'm reading, if you don't go and read it yourself and figure it out, and you don't go and research on your own, that shame on you. You should be doing your research. There's some other people that have said that lately, and I tend to agree that we need to be doing our own research. We can't just take the word of somebody else. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down. Leave a comment whether you have any questions. Any comments? I know I had one comment from a subscriber, Joe. And actually, if you go over to St. Bernard Acres, Joe is doing his own series. I don't know how far he's gotten. I've missed out a couple of videos here lately. But he's actually doing the he's doing a series on the Bill of Rights. And I don't know how far along he's gotten with that, but go check him out as well. If you haven't subscribed to him, I mean, he's given me a shout out a couple times, which I do thoroughly appreciate and thank him for. So anyhow, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.